And we're live. Peter, welcome along to this week's episode of the SFTC Academy Livestream.
It's great to be here.
So we had so much content last week, Peter, that we've spilled over into this week. We're going to carry on talking about the Winter 21 release, which is a real bumper release. You've spent a lot of time going through the release notes, and we're not convinced we're going to get through everything in today's show as well.
And the thing is, I've only pulled out highlights as well. There is, I said it last week, and I'll say it again. There is so much stuff in this release. It's ridiculously big.
Which is a lot to take in. So we got through Service Cloud last week, and we're going to kick off today talking about some of the new Sales Cloud features. So where should we start?
Einstein, a good place.
Yeah. Einstein call coaching. This is an area I'm not too familiar with.
Yeah.
What's this all about?
Well, I got really excited about this because just the title alone, call coaching in Einstein, sounds really good. But the problem is that it's only available in high velocity sales, which is an add-on to Salesforce. So, hopefully we'll see this trickle down to the lower versions at some point in time, or to the other clouds. But basically, it's going to help sales reps get through, navigate through sales and provide more insight and call sharing and things like that. So it's also an indication of where Einstein's going, I think, and what's going to be coming out of that. So looks pretty cool. We just won't be able to use it from our perspective, but I'm sure there are customers out there that have got high velocity and will be using it. So
yeah, I've looked at high velocity sales before, and I guess it's tailoring lead management to a particular use case, as in the name, high velocity, and just being able to almost script your sales process very precisely.
Yeah.
And once, I guess that's where the value of this comes in, is you've got a prescriptive process. How can you measure and improve against that, and use the data that's been captured combined with Einstein and get some real valuable insights out the other end?
Indeed. So there's that. The next one I think we do actually get access to. I might be wrong on that.
That'll be cool. And it's got Einstein in it again.
Indeed. Einstein lead scoring with less data. So this is a lot of customers out there that have wanted to use Einstein, just don't have the enough data to be able to get the best out of it. So it looks like Salesforce has opened up the ability to use anonymized data from other sources that they've got, and to build up that scoring model, and then you can be based against that. So it's an interesting concept. I think it's interesting in what it could do for the future as well. But I like the idea that it's going to give you a more mature Einstein approach to things, and be more insightful, I would hope, off the back of that. So, yeah. But it's also, I think it's the first time we've used that anonymous aggregated data is the words. So. Which is,
that's an entire debate on its own, right? Data is a very sensitive topic, as we've talked about before, and some of the privacy aspects, some of the value that these platforms, not just Salesforce, but any SaaS platform, what they can do with benchmarking and the rest, comes back to driving valuable insights. So there's a line you don't want to cross, and it doesn't feel like this has crossed things too much, but it's just a new direction that I don't think we've seen for a little while. And who knows what that source of data is actually. We're probably making assumptions as to what the source of that anonymous data is too.
Yeah. And I suppose it would be interesting, and I doubt whether we'll ever get any insights to what it is really, because if you're in a particular silo or a particular vertical, for example, would you get data specific for that vertical versus a whole bunch of similar data of similar companies, all that. So my take out of this is, well, we know that data is king now, and it's the most valuable thing that's out there. As we're getting more and more into this and being able to mine it and understand it, there's so much more that's going to come out the back of it. So, yeah, I think it's the first step that Salesforce has taken towards this. As I said, the anonymous aggregated data. Who knows? Who knows what will then?
And how does that flow into our next talking point, which is basically the similar thing but for opportunities? So yes. The Einstein scoring model is getting smarter.
Again, a good thing. So I also like the fact that Einstein getting smarter. I don't think it's actually possible for Einstein to get smarter, but yes, it is. I'm just reading my notes now because I wrote this one last week and I had to refresh my memory about what I wrote. So it's the inputs that you're getting into it that are becoming smarter. So you're able to actually give it more of the things you want it to look at from an input perspective, and that includes custom opportunity fields. Well, you can exclude those, I should say, and then there's also things you can do around certain conditions as well. So being able to provide some of that type of I'm trying to think of the word. Matrix is not the right word that I'm thinking of. Boundaries. That's not it either. I'll come up with something around that to minimise the noise, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. So, yeah.
Cool. And I guess this will be almost a thing that we'll see on every release is that, in theory, the AI component should get smarter.
Yeah.
Because they make a whole bunch of predictions, and then later on you get to measure if those predictions were how accurate they were. And if it's a self-learning machine, it'll take that in, figure out where it got it wrong, and refine the model and get better and better until it takes over the world, and then we realise we've gone too far.
Gee, that got very dark very, very quickly. Let's bring it back up a level.
Yeah. to something a little bit more mundane, shall we say?
Indeed, the next one is
Office 365 productivity software. Let's get excited about that.
So this is the connector between 365 and Salesforce, and Einstein Activity Capture is now going to be all wrapped around all that in some more, or in better ways, I suppose is probably the way to look at it. So it's going to simplify the authentication side of things, and it just gives you more access to control the data that Salesforce is getting and all that type of stuff as well. So it's that next, and again, it's the same thing. It's that next evolution of this stuff, which is good.
Yep. Yeah, I think I was looking into Einstein Activity Capture recently. It's still feels a little bit early. Just a few little rough edges around the setup process and things to work through. But with other connectors being retired, there's so many different names. I can't get them right, but I think it's Outlook for Salesforce plus Lightning Sync. Being retired. That's one of the next. Yeah, it's one of the next points actually of Lightning Sync being end of the year. Yeah. So as I understand it, this is the future. Einstein Activity Capture, and one of the key things I think, as I understand it, it works behind the scenes, which is a lot easier than having something client side where you have to remember, I need to right click on this email, add to Salesforce. If you can actually just have all that data coming in and then some intelligence to filter out the stuff that you don't want to end up in Salesforce, that's the perfect kind of set and forget on this stuff.
Indeed. One of the good things with the release of, we're talking all about email integrations at the moment, or email in itself. The next point is that we can create larger emails with a new maximum size of 35 megabytes.
Now, why on earth would you want to create a 35 megabyte email?
I don't know. How big is a 35 megabyte email? What would you put in a 35 megabyte? I have no idea. But
have to be attachments. That
well,
would
that's the
have to
thing.
be how you'd fill it up.
So it's including the email headers, the bodies, the attachments, and the encoding. So which wouldn't take very long for some emails to get to that point, I think. So yeah, that's a good increase on that side of things. So I'm sure that will go to your storage limits as well, but ultimately, so.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was about to bring up. If you're sending too many emails that size, you're going to blow some limit somewhere quite soon. So back to what we were just talking about. So Lightning Sync is one of the options for syncing. Is it just Outlook and Salesforce? I can't remember if Lightning Sync was applied to the Google Suite as well, but is now no longer available for new customers.
Yeah.
So again, everything is coming back to Einstein Activity Capture as the path forward for linking these services. So,
and I think the point on this also is to just remember that at times Salesforce does retire some of this stuff, and it's timely to keep that in mind. So, and when they do retire, it's because they've come out with some better functionality that does even better, as we just said, smarter way and all that type of stuff. So, but you need to be on top of those things.
Yep. And the thing to remember as well is there's still a lot of third-party tools in this space. So I don't think people are being forced that Einstein Activity Capture is the only option. You can still go third-party with a number of tools that I know integrate with both Google and Microsoft suites on this front.
Yeah. Yeah. It does say it's not available for new customers, so it's fine. I'll need to go back and just check the notes again, but I think it is following that path that they're deprecating it and that it's still going to be there. It won't get any love at all, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that in itself is, even if you're already using it, just the fact that it's not going to probably get much love moving forward is a good catalyst to get moving to whatever the next thing is.
Indeed.
All right, so let's get into something a bit more chunky. CPQ.
Yeah, so CPQ. I honestly can't say I've seen any enhancements on CPQ in a while. Probably because I haven't looked at the notes for a while. But that's beside the point. There's a few things in there this time around. Things I would classify as housekeeping more than exciting enhancements. So things like being able to create an order without an opportunity. So you can remove the need to have a parent opportunity on that stuff. A really good one, and this one sort of blows your mind when you think about it, that you can now add on products and you can make amendments and prevent backdated amendments at the same time. So you couldn't do that before.
Right.
And probably would have done it with either a validation rule or some kind of trigger or something like that. So that takes that away. It's a restriction that actually came in from Spring 20, so restriction, or what I would classify as a bug. Yeah. Their words were restriction. So yeah, it fixes that issue. So.
Yep. I think on the CPQ front as well, a lot of the focus in the last 2 years has been rebuilding what was the Steelbrick managed package and moving that all into completely native functionality. So probably the product hasn't seen too many net new features during that time while that kind of rebuild was happening, and I know they had to do a lot. Just taking what was custom objects, for example, before, a different price book system, rebuilding all that on standard price books and the rest. So I guess now, having come through that, obviously ironed out a few kinks, now they're in a position to address what's surely a growing backlog of new features they need to add.
Yeah, and there are some things they've added, some new stuff, which is good. But again, I'd still classify this stuff in the first place as housekeeping, I suppose.
Yeah.
The next one we got on the list is understanding what your customers have bought. So this is using asset lifecycle management. So and it is literally just being able to see exactly which assets they've got and where it's at and all that type of stuff. So that's a great thing. It's what I refer to as the holy grail of customer interactivity, which I think is a word I made up. I'm not really sure. I googled it. Don't think it's a thing, but I like it. Don't even know what it means because I made it up.
Sounds good.
So yeah, being able to see where those assets are and what's happening with them, I suppose at that time is because it all ties back into that customer 360 approach as well. So
yeah. And as you say, like the next couple of features we're seeing probably still in that kind of housekeeping kind of category. We've got some more validation on quote lines.
This one gets me, Have you ever tried to produce a quote and have it come out in a particular order? Because you think it's going to come out with the way you've added it to the quote. No, it's a separate thing. So this now fixes that bug. So everything's got an actual line order now. So right. Yeah.
Good.
Next one is being able to use test payment gateways.
Okay.
In both sandbox and prod production. So prod production, it's a bit redundant. Yeah. So again, being able to go through and use a test gateway, be able to actually go through the full life cycle of doing testing and rejections and all those type of things, but not actually processing stuff is really, really good. So.
Yep. So this is now we're getting, I guess, out of the strict CPQ product and into the billing product.
That's right. True. It's on the billing front. That is dead right.
Yep. And of course the billing product covers all the different billing scenarios. This could be a payment gateway where someone can settle with credit card, but at the same time you've got integration with your standard ERP and accounting systems and more traditional invoicing and billing events and all the rest of it.
Yeah. And again, one of those ones that's in there is the aligning your cancellation or amendment dates to billing periods, which the only way I could think of that we could have done that before is either with the trigger or automation around that. So this actually now aligns those things, so you don't have to go off and do it either manually or through automation. So that's another interesting one. There are some other stuff, as I said, and it's worthwhile having a look at the notes on it. But they're the ones that sort of jumped out the page at me, anyway. So.
Yeah. Industry clouds. So I lose track. I think there's 5 industry clouds now. When you kind of start to count the velocity clouds, their industry clouds as well.
Yeah.
And they are obviously all, as I understand it, and I spoke to someone about this the other day, they're sort of in a phase of figuring out how the velocity clouds and the industry clouds all kind of come together to present a coherent kind of offering.
Yep.
And I think there's certain industries that Velocity covered, for example, that there wasn't a cloud for, so that's a nice simple one. I think there's some more complex around financial services, for example, where there was Salesforce had their own industry cloud, then you've got a Velocity financial services cloud. So that'll be interesting to see how they kind of mesh those together and come up with, I guess, at least a coherent kind of marketing message that says, well, if this is the business you're in, maybe it's even sub-industries within industries, this is the right product for you to go ahead. And there's even overlap. I know a lot of the Velocity clouds have effectively built custom CPQs for the industry that they're in. So then you've also got some overlap with the CPQ product that we've just talked about as well. So there's just a little bit of untangling to do in the industry front.
Yep.
And it wouldn't surprise, perhaps, pure guessing here, but it wouldn't surprise me if, just like we talked about with CPQ, sort of going through a rebuild phase after the acquisition, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe feature development on some of the industry clouds slows down for a little bit while they look to merge some of these clouds perhaps.
which does make sense. You don't want several options out there. Ultimately, no, I can't think of a scenario where you would want several options for the same vertical. So yeah, that does make perfect sense. So.
Cool. Analytics. Should we jump into that?
Yeah.
So this first one.
Yeah. Do you remember those days when you can get a report via email?
Oh yeah, I think I remember those days.
Do you remember when that went away because of lightning?
I knew it went away, but it was what was the trigger for it? Of course, it was lightning.
Yeah. So now we can. It's back. It's back, and it's generally available. So, it was out in beta. It goes out to everybody in this next release. So, go and subscribe. Get as many reports as you want. Then question why you're getting all those reports into your inbox and you're not using a dashboard to manage that stuff. But anyway, that's a stream for another day.
Yeah, and I think I may be wrong, but I think I read about this one that you can actually there's more options than you used to have in terms of how you receive that report. So I think you can get it as an Excel attachment or other options as well, which is probably a little bit easier. I remember getting those emails and it's kind of the slightly ugly formatted email, and then yes, you can glance at that data and be like, oh, okay, I need to do something based on that. But if you then need to take that somewhere else, good luck. You're basically diving back in to do an export to get the data in a format you can do something with.
Yep. So that's a good one. It's a good one to get something like that out there.
So Snowflake. This is something I've been hearing about a lot lately, as the company built up to what was a massive IPO a few hours ago today.
Mm-hmm.
Salesforce obviously got their timing right. They made a pretty sizable investment in Snowflake about a month ago, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was in their last earnings announcement, and they will have seen quite a sizable return on that investment already today. So this is, as my understanding is, Snowflake sort of makes next generation data warehousing and kind of the insights that come off the back of that. So part of that is getting a whole bunch of data into Snowflake. And so it sounds like this feature is providing that connector for Salesforce data to get into Snowflake.
Yeah, it's being able to sync it out. So what you would have done manually before, you can now sync it and use a data recipe to actually maintain or push it out from Salesforce. So making that easier to fill your lake with data. I think I should trademark them.
Yeah. So it's funny how it moved on from, you had a warehouse full of data, but then the warehouse wasn't big enough, so then you needed to fill a lake.
What's next?
Yeah, exactly. That's what
Data
I'm trying
dams?
to think. Data ocean.
I know.
So for those people jumping in, so I guess this feature, set and forget, your data ends up where it needs to, and can then use all the power to do whatever.
And the good thing is, I mean, if you're manually moving that, then your chances are that your data's never up to date, really. So you can set that. My understanding is you can set the timing and everything in that data recipe, so that you've got. I don't want to say real-time data, but it's going to be as close to real-time as it possibly could be. Well, it's going to be better than pushing it manually anyway. So yeah.
And so the next one, there's a new app in town in analytics world.
Yep, Revenue Operations Analytics app. That's a title.
That's tying into a new buzzword I've been hearing around RevOps. It used to be sales ops, now it's RevOps.
Is it the same thing? I don't know.
I lose track, to be honest.
But the concept of revenue operations analytics is interesting. I have literally grabbed the wording from the release notes, and it says it delivers forecasting analytics with a better user experience, better pipeline visibility, and easier deal inspection, and forecasting with the use of predictive analytics. So, I don't actually know what all those words mean when you say it that way, but
it sounds good.
Yeah, it's going to be better and more insightful, obviously. Well, obviously, we would hope it would be more insightful around that revenue operation side of things. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about it at the moment, but again, it jumped off the page at me when I was going through the notes. So,
yeah, well, if it's providing, essentially some of that Einstein predictive analytics capability to, then build that model around, going back to early discussion point around opportunity scoring, understand what's the chances this deal is going to close, try and, what does it say there, forecasting analytics, trying to derive an intelligent forecast, then that all becomes quite powerful. And then if it's, as it says, drilling into deal inspection, so it can kind of give you some commentary to say, we think this deal will close in this time frame for this amount based on these factors, and if you want to improve the chances, focus on these things that have history has shown us close deals faster, or whatever the case may be. So if that's bringing all of that together, then that's quite powerful, because I think a lot of people try perhaps get into that mentality of, well, my business is special and different, and effectively try to build something like this from scratch. Whereas the beauty of these Einstein apps and analytics is you can always extend them. And so you can always start with them as a starting point, and then make those tweaks if you feel necessary to match what your business needs.
Yeah. Interesting. Look, it's an interesting step into that space for them. So it's good.
Yep. Now we're getting into the weeds of some features. We've got date and time data.
Yeah, so
this reminds me, this is something I've come up against in analytics, that it hasn't handled time zones well at all.
Which you sort of sit there and scratch your head and go, really?
Yep. Currency is another one. I'm not sure if they've made any advances on that one, but it's an international world. That's something that it's perhaps struggled with.
Not the world doesn't revolve around GMT time. Well, now you can actually make sure that you're not revolving around GMT time. So keep in mind this is in beta, so it's not out fully as a GA release yet, but it's going to set the time that you want your data to be captured in your dashboard to your requirements more than the GMT time. So one step forward.
Indeed.
Next one's sort of similar around that. I've sort of looked at this and scratched my head that you haven't been able to do this, but you can now protect your data in embedded dashboards with locked or hidden filters. How many times we've seen where a dashboard's been set up and released out, and then someone goes, "Oh, hang on, but my numbers are different to your numbers. But you're using the same. Oh no, I've taken that and I've changed it." So this makes sure that those things that you want to keep the same, you can lock away and make sure that you're all talking from the same song sheet as such.
Yep.
No, you'd be singing from the same song sheet.
Yep. Excellent. And the last one on analytics. Just got some new formatting options to, they've even used the word make them pop in the release note.
Yes, so this is giving that ability to do that conditional formatting. So if you want to add in some, if you want to see your numbers in a particular color because they're fantastic, then yes, now you can do that. Or obviously, if they're really bad, exactly the same thing. you can add your text in there and all those type of things as well. So not dissimilar to what we've seen with some of the dynamic forms and things like that as well that we've seen in Lightning. It's being brought across into analytics.
Excellent. And maybe for today we'll close out on the last two, which is sort of related to analytics discovery, and then we've still got a whole lot more to talk about next week, including Community Cloud, which is one of my favorite clouds. So let's close out on these two to do with discovery. So you can now embed predictions in your data set during data preparation.
Yep. So this one's in pilot.
Peter?
It means, let me read from the notes, Dan. You can store your descriptions of your top predictors and improvements. So when you run a recipe, Einstein will estimate and saves the predicted outcomes on a row-by-row basis. I know it's in pilot. I think we need to get on the pilot, play with it.
Yeah, well, Discovery is an interesting one. I've had a little bit of a play with it. It's one of those things where, similar to actually what we talked about earlier with things like lead scoring and opportunity scoring, you actually need a really good data set to start with. And that's where I've sort of run into. I know if you do the trailheads, then they give you a decent data set to have a good crack at it. But in the real world, it's often been trickier to make good use of. But potentially pretty powerful. You're getting access to the under the hood Einstein engine to start to drive some of your own insights. But you almost it's another skill set in itself to define, well, what are the insights? What are the things I want to predict? Maybe a little bit more of that data scientist point of view needed, but I know they're trying to target this is the data science for everybody. So obviously trying to work a balance there between something that's not too complicated to get set up, easy to understand, and try and get some good predictions out of it.
Yep. Now the next one we talked about, well, basically buzzwords. I've put this one in here because I have no idea what it means. Build accurate models using random forest algorithms. All right. I've got nothing.
You got nothing?
I just like the random forest. It's like, okay. I am not across this. This is probably something where we should get Andrew Price on to talk to us about it.
Yeah, exactly. Modeling. So it's obviously an algorithm that's out there that's proving valuable in the data science community, and now is the fourth type of model that you can use with Einstein Discovery. So ultimately leads to better accuracy. So maybe this is one we park and get Andrew back on and have a good chat, because I've seen him posting on LinkedIn a bit lately, some pretty cool stuff that can be done. Maybe last time we talked to him primarily around analytics, maybe we get him back and have a good chat about discovery and making predictions and what we can do.
Because that's, well, for me, that's the more exciting thing about Einstein. So
absolutely. We want to predict the future and make better decisions and learn from those and keep getting better. That's where we drive all the value from. Excellent. Oh, well, let's park it there for this week. We've still got lots and lots to cover. So this will nicely drip feed out while we wait for this release to hit production in a few weeks' time. And let's carry on. We've got some cool stuff about Flow to talk about next week, communities, a bit more of the platform side of things. So I'm certainly looking forward to next week. And we'll call it there for today. And thank you, everyone. And we'll pick it up again with part 3 next week. Same time, same place.
See you all then.